Ancient Egypt is one of the most interesting times in history because there are so many strange things known about it. History buffs aren't the only ones who are crazy about this time period. It has been the subject of hundreds of books, movies, and plays, many of which use tropes and ideas that aren't true. It's not necessary to make up stories about Egypt because many of the facts about that time are interesting enough on their own. Archaeologists are still finding new and interesting facts about this society, which has been around for a very long time and has had many different types of people living in it. Many well-known stories about ancient Egypt are based on lies, but these strange facts are entirely factual. There are some that are interesting and some that are gross, but they all show that this time in history was truly unique. Enemies of Egypt used cats as a shield in battle. Ancient Egypt was known for having a strong army that rarely lost. But when their Persian enemies found out that they worshipped cats and other animals, they came up with a plan. Polyenus, a 2nd century Macedonian author, happened to be at the battle and wrote about the horrible scene of feline fury, led by the Persian king Cambyses II. To counter this destructive barrage, Cambyses ranged before his frontline cats and whatever other animals the Egyptians hold sacred. The Egyptians immediately stopped their operations, out of fear of hurting the animals, which they hold in great veneration. Cambyses captured Pelusium and thereby opened up for himself the route into Egypt. The Persians were able to take Egypt for the first time by using cat shields in this way. Lettuce was seen as a sex symbol and aphrodisiac. In ancient Egypt, lettuce was considered to be something significantly more potent than the primary component of a salad at the time. Even as early as 2700 BCE, it was used as a representation of Min, the god of fertility. It was used to honor the god and inspire masculine virility and reproduction. This was due to the fact that it appeared to have the shape of a phallus. Additionally, it was consumed as an aphrodisiac in order to stimulate sexual desire. In all of the hieroglyphic representations of Min, he is seen to be encompassed with lettuce. A gay couple owned a royal nail salon for the pharaoh. It's hard to believe, but it's true. In ancient Egypt, a couple comprised of 2 males who co-owned a royal manicure salon was a well-known and socially acceptable pairing. Pharaoh Niuserre Ini held Khnumhotep and Nyankhnum in such high regard that he paid for them to be interred in an extravagant royal tomb after their careers as manicurists and confidants to the king. They were placed to rest facing one another, as was the custom for married couples at the time, and the headstones included the inscription, "Joined in life and joined in death." Numerous Egyptologists are of the opinion that in addition to being lovers, they may have also been brothers. Women peed on barley seeds to see if they were pregnant. While ancient Egyptian women didn't really pee on a stick to find out they were pregnant, they did use their urine to see if they were coming soon. It was thought that if a woman peed on barley seeds on the ground and the seeds grew quickly, the woman was pregnant. Even stranger, when experts from the National Institutes of Health did this test again today, it worked 70% of the time. There is a special mix of hormones in a pregnant woman's pee that might help explain the correct results. It's possible that the chemicals in the urine help the barley seeds grow faster than if you just put water on them. Magicians lured demons out of possessed people with dung. In ancient Egypt, magic was common. Certain gods and scorpion charmers used magic in their daily lives to help their communities. They made spell books and carved wands out of ivory that were passed around groups of wizards. Also, crocodile dung could be used for many things. The Egyptians thought that demons were drawn to very bad things, even smells that were very bad. They thought that crocodile or other animal poop could be used to get a devil out of a person who was possessed. Demons, on the other hand, were scared away by sweet things like honey. People often did these things because they thought evil powers were to blame for many things, even sickness. Ainan, Nefertiti's husband, was both male and female. Many people know that Akhenaten, an Egyptian pharaoh, tried to bring religion to Egypt. A lot of people don't know this, but Akhenaten was born with traits of both men and women. All of the pictures of him show him to have the body of a woman, with wide hips and breasts, big lips, and a thin face. He is thought to have had many children, so it's clear that his male reproductive parts still worked. One of them might have been Tutankhamun, a famous person from ancient Egypt. Because he didn't follow the religious rules of the time, Akhenaten was erased from Egyptian society after he died. Archaeologists found a whole city he built in the 1800s, which is when he was found again. Ancient Egyptians used rotten milk and crocodile poop as a birth control method. The ancient Egyptians employed crocodile excrement as a birth control method, which is one of the most revolting things that has ever been done to prevent pregnancy. However, there have been many strange and unpleasant birth control methods used throughout history. What could possibly be more revolting than crocodile dung? Crocodile feces ground into a mixture with sour milk and then put into the vaginal canal of a female victim. It was believed that the acid in this paste would stop sperm in their tracks and prevent them from reaching the uterus. It was effective, despite the fact that it sounded gross. Diaphragms are utilized in modern times to achieve the same goal of preventing sperm from entering the uterus. They are not constructed out of crocodile feces, but rather of silicone that is of medical grade. Egyptians cursed their enemies by drowning voodoo dolls in urine. Ancient Egyptians held a wide variety of religious and spiritual beliefs, many of which had their origins in magic. They did intriguing things to their adversaries by using wands, casting spells, and cursing each other. Making a copy of the person or thing that was subject to the curse out of papyrus or clay was one of the procedures. After that, the doll was either set ablaze, stabbed, or otherwise destroyed. Urine was used in the final process, which consisted of dissolving what was left of the voodoo doll in buckets. Even while it is hard to know for sure whether or not the hex was successful, it was most likely therapeutic. Cleopatra and Mark Anthony had a drinking club called the Inimitable Livers. It's possible that Cleopatra and her Roman lover Mark Antony were the ones who had the wildest parties in ancient Egypt. Because they did so much feasting and celebrating, they decided to start a club for it. They referred to themselves as the Inimitable Livers, and on a daily basis, the members of the group would take part in parties and banquets. There is a school of thought among Egyptologists that Cleopatra worshipped Dionysus, the Roman deity of wine and revelry. They believe that she established this group in order to worship him in some way, while others say that it was just a pretext for her to throw parties. Egyptologists recreated ancient Egyptian bread by using ancient yeast. In the year 2019, a gastro-Egyptologist by the name of Seamus Blackley used old pottery from Old Kingdom Egypt that were used to bake bread in order to reawaken and capture the same yeast that was employed 4,500 years ago. He was able to effectively reproduce an Old Kingdom loaf by making use of the yeast in conjunction with the identical elements that the ancient Egyptians used to make bread. He was able to successfully extract the yeast with the assistance of a microbiologist and an archaeologist, confirming that the yeast was of the same strain that had been utilized hundreds of years before. The most exciting part? Blackley commented that it had a scrumptious flavor. Bread was an essential part of the nutrition of the ancient Egyptians. Because they drank a lot of beer, there was plenty of yeast that had been preserved on the pottery even though it was made thousands of years ago. Ancient Egyptians invented sunscreen and toothpaste. When it comes to maintaining their own personal cleanliness, the ancient Egyptians were centuries ahead of their time. They were interested in health and vigor as well as their beauty, since they cared about how they looked. After bathing, it was customary practice for Egyptians to use a sun protection lotion that contained rice, jasmine, and lupine. Rice acted as a barrier against the sun's ultraviolet rays, while jasmine and lupine gradually lightened the skin. In the past, sunscreen was largely used for cosmetic purposes, but nowadays its primary function is to guard against solar damage and cancer caused by the sun. Lighter complexion was a sign of prosperity in Egyptian culture because the Egyptians believed that those with lighter skin spent less time laboring outside in the sun. They were also responsible for the development of toothpaste, which consisted of the ashes of burnt eggshells combined with pumice and flavored with spearmint and dried flowers. One of the greatest pharaohs of Egypt was a woman disguised as a man. People thought Hatshepsut Ma'at-Kara was one of the most famous pharaohs of Egypt's 18th dynasty. She was a woman. She was queen of Kemet for more than 20 years, which was one of the longer reigns. To show how powerful she was, she dressed like a man and asked to be shown in hieroglyphics and sculptures as a man. She was the daughter of Pharaoh Thutmose I and co-ruled with Thutmose III, her husband. She was married to Thutmose II, who was her half-brother. Even though she was a woman, she was preferred over the male heir because she had taken good steps that made Egypt richer. It was her jealous successor who tried to erase her reputation from Egyptian history after she died, but he failed, just like his rule. In 1903, her tomb and hieroglyphics that praised her as a great queen were found. We hope you liked this video, subscribe to the channel if you're a history addict, and please let us know about what civilization or time period we should talk about. Also, watch another video here.